Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. In this episode, Z is going to begin a hopefully successful mission to resupply our Duna Station with both supplies and personnel. If you've been following this series, you know that the last episode kind of made a rookie mistake, ended up orbiting the planet the wrong way without enough Delta V to actually fix the problem. So I think the hope is lost for those guys. Maybe not, we'll see. But let's see if we can't get an extra crew up there and actually get some progress with the station. And with this launch, we begin a very long journey to bring a crew of 6, along with minimal fuel and RCS, to the Duna Station. Now this was a very long mission. We ended up launching 2 of these vessels here. This is the first. As you can see, we're not using the cluster staging on the engines anymore. I've been having issues with that ever since 19 came out, or 0.19 I should say. So we end up just kind of going back to the asparagus staging model and working it from there. Now as you can see, we've built in a sort of what I like to call space tug along with this. The goal here is to actually just bring the capsule itself to the station, but we end up bringing the tug as well, which I'm sure we'll kind of discard later on. But I mean, the engines are extremely efficient, and this just seems like the most viable way to actually get there. So after we get this bad guy in orbit, we actually send up an additional, almost an exact same craft to kind of link up with this. I planned on bringing 2 of these out to the station at Duna, just due to the time it takes to get there. So we just figured that it would be more efficient this way. So we're launching our second one here. I've got another tug built into this. You can kind of see the two docking ports on the side. We try to actually kind of link them up, and I didn't account for the balance issue there, so that served to kind of be a problem. But the only difference on this little guy compared to the one we just launched is going to be this guy has landing legs. Now, my intention is to have this be our lander for Duna. Whether or not that's going to happen, I've been thinking about it a little bit. I don't have parachutes on these capsules, either one. So if anything, this guy will be able to get to the surface, hopefully with the combination of atmospheric drag and that lander engine I have on there. Hopefully the fuel is going to be enough. So we'll be able to theoretically get to the surface, but they're not going to be able to come back until we actually get another ship out there that can actually make it to the surface and make it back to the station successfully, hopefully without getting stranded in orbit or anything like that. So we actually, I discover here, I try to put this guy on the side port, and I was going to do the other side with the other capsule. In 0.19, it gets dark when you're on the dark side of any planet, which it never did before. I didn't account for that, and there are no lights here. So needless to say, docking in complete darkness without any lights is kind of nerve-wracking, and you have to really rely on your nav ball to make sure that you get lined up properly. So after playing around with that tug a little bit, I decided to get rid of it after I sapped all the fuel and other resources I could away from it. There's no point really in bringing 2 tugs out to the station. You know, being that I'm on a MacBook Pro here, loves editing the video, but it doesn't like when I have a ton of parts going on in KSP. Yeah, we'll probably get rid of all the tugs eventually anyway. Now this docking went off pretty much without a hitch. There wasn't any issues really. I kind of just attached this guy on the other end, as you can see right there. That seemed to be the best case for balance. And just watching this makes me think that I've seen some comments that are asking about docking and stuff like that. Maybe, I think we keep saying it, but maybe in the future we can make a tutorial video to help you guys out. If that's something you guys would be interested in, please, by all means in the comments, let us know either way. I'm sure S and I would not have any issue setting off project work just for a little bit to make a docking video, because it can be very difficult, and you really have to rely on your instruments. I don't recommend docking with any kind of main engines whatsoever, whether that be anything from the mainsail engine to just this little lander engine. There comes a point where all you really need to dock is RCS. Now with that being said, we're going to get closer here. Just kind of making some fine-tune controls. I've got to the point where I pretty much only rely on nav ball when you get within a certain proximity to whatever you're trying to dock with. If you just really focus on your velocity vector with your target vector, if you will, if that's what we want to call it, you can see it. It kind of pretty much just works. Obviously, the visual orientation helps, but just like we saw a few minutes ago, when you're actually docking in darkness without any lights, you need to be able to do so without any kind of or without destroying your ships in orbit. And also, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this too, but if you have multiple vessels with SAS, turn it off because it's just going to destroy itself. As we cycle fuel out here for balance issues, and yeah, we wait for the right phase angle to get out to Duna. And finally, we are out at Duna. We're testing, or we're doing the aero brake here. This is actually my third attempt. First time, slowed down not enough. The second time, too much, and nearly collided with the surface. This time seemed to work out pretty well, except I haven't really settled on a desired altitude yet. I kind of just play around with it. So you can see we're closing in here. This is actually the first time I start seeing re-entry effects on a different planet, which I thought was pretty cool. It took a minute, and my computer didn't like it, but I was able to get some a few moments here of the burning effects, which were pretty cool. And now, after all those fun and games and cool reentry effects, we find ourselves now on a course to finally properly dock with the Duna Outpost. This has worked out way better than I thought it would. We saw some glitching issues going on here with the time warp, which I thought was interesting, and I kind of played around with it a little bit. But yeah, this has been a very long journey. I actually end up just dropping the tug after I get everything oriented. I mean, I drained all the fuel out of it here eventually, but bottom line, the only thing we do here is just bring our two vessels, our two capsule craft to dock with the station, and we kind of leave the tug out here. I think it's worth saying, when you're docking in Kerbal orbit, and you just lift it off, resources are plentiful, and you kind of got a little leeway. But I started getting stressed a little bit here because, towards the end of the journey, you're very limited on resources, and you have to plan accordingly. There's been some docking instances where I have completely messed it up and spent minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but minutes trying to dock. But if you think about all the RCS and fuel that I've wasted during those times, which I'm sure you've seen in other videos, out here you can't have that because you will get stranded, and that's not what we want. We're trying to take this as seriously as possible. But we ended up bumping into the station here. I eventually get it worked out. I was kind of getting a little impatient with it, but in the end it worked out pretty well. And after we got the first one settled on here, kind of turn off SAS, and we try to balance it out a little bit. I didn't want to have SAS on because it would just shake itself apart into pieces. So we kind of got it as close as we could. I wanted to flip it around to avoid any issues with bringing the second craft up. It just seemed easier if I had the free-facing port that we wanted to dock on facing the craft. So you can see that's what we're doing here. We're kind of flipping it around. We drain the fuel out, like I said earlier, and we pretty much just abandon the tug here. I'm going to get rid of both this tug and the one that's already attached to the station, like we talked about before, which I'll probably do off camera. But we end up bringing this guy in for a successful dock, and kind of bringing it into the journey, which is, like I said, started with that single launch, and it took a long time to do. But I can honestly say, after putting this mission off for a while, and I kind of did it in different parts here, it's nice to actually finally have a resupply to the station in the form of both people or Kerbals, I guess we should say, and we end up bringing this little bit of fuel, which actually helped quite a bit. We'll eventually start planning for an expedition to the surface. I will definitely record that. Duna or bust. Hopefully we can actually make it down to the surface in one piece. If not, regardless, I'll have that on video. But I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage a little bit of subscriber feedback, if you will. Whether or not this capsule, well, I mean, I've pretty much already come to the conclusion that this little guy can make it down to the surface, but he's not going to get back. I'd like to open it up to you guys. If you want to provide us, via a link in the description, or send us a message via YouTube itself, or however. If you can design a smaller craft, pretty much the size of this capsule here, that you think can actually make it down to the surface and back, and I will say that it needs to carry at least 3 people, or three three Kerbals. I would gladly put it to the test. So I'll bring it out here to Duna. I'll record that, and we'll actually bring it down to the surface. I'd like to encourage as much subscriber participation as possible. But with that being said, we've pretty much come to the conclusion here. Finally, we have 2 ships successfully docked at the station. The tugs will be gone before you know it. I'd like to thank everybody's patience for this. I didn't think that, I mean, we've got some great feedback on this series, which I didn't think would be the case when I initially started it out. So thank you so much for following us. I think S just notified me a little bit ago that we hit 300 subscribers, which is just completely amazing. We started this off as just a hobby, and our community has grown fairly rapidly. So thanks, and we'll see you guys next time.